Several weeks ago, I went to a hardware store. I'm walking around the hardware store trying to remember why I went there. So I'm walking around the store and I run across this fella. He's restocking the sign section, you know, the for rent, the for sale signs. And somehow we got a nice conversation going, and he told me something very interesting. He said the hardware store doesn't own that particular section of signs. The sign company rents that section, that location, from the hardware store. So he works not for the hardware store, but rather for the sign company. Maybe that's why he was so free in conversing with me. Well, we were having a nice conversation. I said to him, all the signs that you sell, what are your most commonly sold signs? He said, well, the for rent sign, the for sale sign, we sell those signs more than any other sign we have. Then I said to him, of all the signs you sell, what is the one sign that really is, for most people, a waste of money, that no one pays attention to? He said to me, it's this sign right here. The wet paint. He said, if you paint something in view of the public, like a park bench, and you put the wet paint sign next to it, the next day when you take a look at that park bench, it's going to be full of fingerprints. Because everyone that walks by, most people have to stop, look at it, and ask the question, I wonder if it's still wet. And so they touch it. There's a fingerprint. Then I said to him, let me ask you this. Of all the signs you sell, what is the most respected sign that no one violates when they read that sign? Everyone pays heed to the suggestion of the sign. And he said, this is the most respected and non-violated sign we have. High voltage. He said, if you have something in your house that you don't want anyone to touch, put a high voltage sign next to it. No one ever asked the question to themselves, I wonder how high this high voltage really is. People pay attention to that sign. You know, it's really the gift of recognizing that which is right in front of you, to have your eyes open, to read what you see and understand what it means for your life. That's something a lot of us don't do. Our eyes are open, but we don't see that which is right in front of us. We don't see the quality sometimes of our wife or husband. We don't see the beauty in our children. Sometimes we don't see the asset in our home. We look at what we have and we become discouraged and depressed, thinking, I don't have anything, or I should have more, and we don't actually take a good look at what we have and appreciate it. How easy it is to look at something but not recognize that which you have. That's what happens in the disciples in today's gospel reading. Now, the full text I just read is the 24th chapter of Luke, verses 13 to 35. What we want to look at is verse 13, 14, and 15, and we're going to discover something very interesting about two of Jesus' disciples. So take a look. Two of Jesus' disciples. Now, these fellas are not named, and they're not named for a reason. We're going to find out why that is. So two of Jesus' disciples were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus. And they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were there conversing and debating, these two disciples, Jesus himself drew near and walked with him. And there it is. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. They were conversing. Jesus joins their group, and it realized it's Jesus. They got their eyes open. They're talking to this guy, and they don't even realize who he is. How can that happen? If your brother comes to your house and rings the doorbell and you open it up, you're going to recognize that's my brother because you know him. You've seen him before, many times before. You recognize him. They didn't recognize Jesus. I find that absolutely amazing. These were not new disciples. These were not neophytes to the role of being a disciple. These are two of the disciples that Jesus Christ handpicked before his crucifixion. He handpicks these guys. They knew each other. They conversed many times before his crucifixion. This story is told after his crucifixion. And after the crucifixion, they don't recognize him. How can that be? How can you look at someone and not recognize them when you've spent quality time with that person prior to that occurrence? Well, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why they're not named. Because if they were named Peter and James, we can say it's those two guys, Peter and James. But since they're not named, they remain fluid. That means we're all, as a follower of Christ, we're all his disciples. Every so often in life, we don't recognize Christ in one another, but Christ exists in all of us. So often in life, we don't recognize Christ in creation, but he is the author of that which he has created. Every so often in life, we don't recognize what we have in our lives. We don't recognize the blessings God has given to us, despite the fact our eyes are open, and we don't recognize what we're looking at. We don't read the signs. Well, let's take a look at verse 29, 30, and 31. We're going to find out why these guys eventually recognized Christ. So it continues. They urged him, that's these two unnamed disciples, urged Jesus, stay with us, for it is nearly evening, and the day is almost over. So he went in to stay with them, and it happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. And with that, their eyes were open, and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. You see that? What they're saying is, oh, now I recognize you. Because on the Last Supper, on Holy Thursday night, the night before your crucifixion, you did the same thing. You took bread, you broke it, you said the blessing, you did that with a cup of wine. Now we recognize you. You see, the light went off in their head. It was a eureka moment. Now we know who you are. But the second they recognize Christ, what happens? There it is. He vanished from their sight. How often in life, when we finally realize what is right in front of us, then it's gone. If you're disappointed with the son or daughter, because they may be doing things that you're not happy about, and you refuse to recognize the son and daughter, then something happens to them, and you realize at that point, they just needed my help, they just needed my love. But I missed the signs of what I was looking at. You know, there was a fellow called Bill Edens. Bill Edens was born blind. He lived 51 years of his life in darkness, being blind. At the age of 51, an eye surgeon performed a very delicate, complicated surgery on his eyes, and at that surgery was successful, and he gained sight for the very first time. For the next 34 years, until his death at 84, Bill Edens had sight. And he loved being able to see things. He heard all those for 51 years. People describe things, but had no idea what they looked like. And every time he would see something that would get him excited, he would yell out what it was. Bill Eden says for the 34 years, from the age of 51 when he gained his sight to 84 when he died, every time he saw the color yellow, he would yell out, "Yellow? I never knew it was that yellow." He was excited. When was the last time you were excited to see yellow? Only at the intersection. Woo! I got a chance yet. And hopefully no one's behind me. You know, Bill Edens, his favorite color in the crayon box was the color red. He loved red. Bill Edens says that for 34 years, from the moment he gained his sight at 51 until he died at 84, every night he would stand outside at his home watching the sunset. And he wrote something very interesting. He said, I would stand there every night watching the sunset, and I was always amazed that my neighbors weren't standing outside of their homes watching the sunset. Why not? Because they took it for granted. They didn't take the time to see it, to look at what was right in front of them. Theirs that was free. Every morning he would stand outside of his house watching the sunrise. And he wrote that every morning as he was watching the sunrise, and what a beautiful, spectacular thing that is, he was amazed that none of his neighbors were standing outside watching the sunrise. Why not? Because they had seen it before once and thought, I know what it looks like, that every sunrise is unique to itself. He also said that what he really enjoyed was nighttime. He thought that all those years he was blind, the night would be totally dark, the darkness he lived for 51 years as a blind man. But he said nighttime wasn't as dark as he thought it would be, because darkness was illuminated by the light of the stars and by light coming from people's homes. He loved darkness. And he wrote something just before he died, because now with clear vision, to be able to see and experience that which was right in front of him, he wrote this. He said, if I had been born able to see, I would have missed so much. Why? Because I would have looked and never seen. I would have just walked around this earth with my eyes open and missed everything. I wouldn't have seen a thing. I would have missed the sunrise and the sunset, and the beauty of a caterpillar working its way up a tree, the beauty of a little ant trying to find its little home. I would have missed all that. But he said, once I gained my sight, I experienced it all because I stopped, I looked, and I recognized that my eyes were open, the gift of recognition. That's what we want to pray for this morning. How much are you missing in your life? How much stuff just actually goes right by you and you never even see it coming? You're walking down the center aisle of the grocery store and someone you know is going the other way, and you don't see them. You're looking right at them, but it doesn't register. You go right by them. They think you might be stocked up, but the truth of the matter is you just didn't look. You didn't have your eyes open wide enough. You weren't seeing what was right in front of you. Heavenly Father, for all of us, give us the gift of being able to look and to see, to look and recognize, to see and appreciate. I'll leave you with what Bill Eden, just before he died, he wrote this. Had I been born able to see, I would have missed so much. Why? Because I would have looked, but never seen.